In the heart of bustling metropolises, high-rise apartments stand as monuments to modern living, each floor a collection of private worlds seemingly insulated from the chaos of the streets below. Residents move through anonymous hallways, trusting in the implied safety of shared walls and secured entryways, believing their most personal spaces are inviolable. Yet beneath this veneer of urban security, a chilling vulnerability often lies dormant, waiting for the precise moment to be brutally exposed. When a life is extinguished within these very walls, the silence that follows becomes a profound, echoing testament to a sanctuary violated. The ordinary suddenly becomes extraordinary, stained by an act of unfathomable violence that leaves behind only questions and a deep, gnawing fear. For investigators, the clock begins a relentless assault, each precious hour eroding the fragile threads of truth. In a world where privacy is paramount and anonymity is common currency, how do you expose a killer whose final steps may have been observed yet remain shrouded in the deepest shadows of fear and silence? The deceptive calm of the Obsidian Towers, a modern fortress of glass and steel in the city's ceaseless sprawl, was shattered. It began not as an explosion, but as an insidious rupture in the quiet rhythm of apartment 3B. Mrs. Albright, a woman whose life revolved around the precise timings of her evening tea and the gentle murmur of her television, had been disturbed by an unnerving silence. A brief, violent struggle muffled by insulated walls had ceased abruptly, leaving a void far more terrifying than the noise that preceded it. Compelled by an instinct she couldn't ignore, she peered through her peephole, a sliver of distortion, revealing a scene that would forever haunt her. Amelia Thorne's apartment door, typically secured, stood ajar, a chilling pool of crimson seeping from the threshold onto the plush hallway carpet, staining the mundane with the undeniable mark of tragedy. The city's distant hum, a constant backdrop to urban life, suddenly felt like a mocking whisper. Generic hallway lights, designed for mere utility, cast a clinical, sterile glow that only amplified the grotesque reality unfolding. Within minutes, the first responders converged their emergency lights, flashing a frantic pulse of red and blue, reflecting off the building's polished facade. Uniformed officers moved with a practiced urgency, their faces set in grim lines that betrayed years of witnessing the darkest corners of human experience. Paramedics, their movements swift and professional, offered no hope. Amelia Thorne, vibrant and full of life, just hours before was gone. The apartment, once a sanctuary filled with hopeful personal touches, a vibrant canvas on an easel, a stack of photography books, a half-empty mug of herbal tea on a coffee table, now stood as an inviolable crime scene. The camera moved slowly, deliberately past the meticulously arranged living room, each detail a stark reminder of a life interrupted until it settled on the horrific tableau within the bedroom. For every life brutally taken, an invisible stopwatch begins measuring the fleeting moments before evidence fades and trails grow cold. The initial hours, fraught with both desperate hope and crushing uncertainty, would forge the foundation of their relentless pursuit, a desperate struggle to connect fragmented clues and reveal the truth before it vanished into the shadows. A symphony of police radios crackled with clipped, urgent commands. "We got one person down, get homicide out here." The palpable fear permeating the Obsidian Towers solidified a shared understanding among residents that their perceived safety had been irrevocably breached. A vibrant existence had been violently extinguished, and the grim quest for accountability had just begun a desperate sprint against the unforgiving current of time. Before the stark chalk outlines and the yellow tape before the cold procedural labels, there was Amelia Thorne. Not a statistic, but a vibrant tapestry woven from passion, laughter, and an unyielding spirit. Her sudden, brutal absence carved a void that resonated far beyond the confines of apartment 3B, a chasm felt most acutely by those who had known her brightest glow. She was larger than life. Amelia's closest friend, Sarah Jenkins, recounted her voice catching on the words, a testament to her raw grief. Amelia had this infectious laugh that could fill any room, a true creative spirit. She just lit up every space she entered. Sarah's hands clasped tightly, knuckles white as if trying to hold on to the fading warmth of a shared memory. She described Amelia's inherent optimism, an almost childlike wonder that fueled her photography, transforming the mundane into moments of profound beauty. A reconstruction of Amelia's life flickered across the screen, a sun-drenched studio, filled with the scent of chemicals and possibility, where Amelia, her eyes alight with artistic fervor, bent over a developing print. Her fingers moved with delicate precision, coaxing images from the paper, each one a testament to her unique vision. Her apartment, now an austere tableau of forensic scrutiny, had once been her sanctuary, a living gallery of her dreams and aspirations. It reflected the woman she was: meticulous, soulful, and brimming with untouched potential. Laura Thorne, Amelia's older sister, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, spoke of a deeper foundational bond. "She was my anchor," Laura whispered, her voice barely audible, yet heavy with the weight of loss. "We shared everything growing up. She was fiercely protective, but also so incredibly kind, always putting others first." Laura recounted childhood summers, spent by a lake, Amelia's boundless energy, her refusal to let any challenge dim her spirit. The memories, once comforting now, served only to deepen the wound of her absence. "You can't be strong through something like that," Laura admitted, her shoulders shaking. "It just rips you to pieces." The devastating ripple effect of Amelia's death radiated outwards. Neighbors in the Obsidian Towers, initially shocked into silence, now spoke in hushed, fearful tones, remembering the friendly woman who always offered a smile or a kind word in the elevator. Her colleagues, equally bewildered, struggled to reconcile the violence with the image of the dedicated artist they knew. For all who encountered her, Amelia Thorne was a vital presence, and her sudden departure left a profound void in the fabric of their lives, a stark testament to the light she brought. Her untimely end ignited a fierce collective imperative to unravel the dark truth and hold its architect accountable for the future irrevocably stolen. Quiet sorrow enveloping her loved ones now sharpened the stakes of the investigation that lay ahead. As the first rays of dawn, indifferent to human tragedy, sliced through the city skyline, Detective Miles Corbin of the Homicide Unit stepped onto the scene. His gaze, weary yet sharp, swept over the grim tableau within apartment 3B. Corbin, a man whose face carried the quiet burden of years, spent navigating the darkest corners of human depravity, projected an unyielding resolve. He moved with methodical calm, his presence immediately asserting a quiet command over the controlled chaos. His eyes, trained by countless tragedies, absorbed every detail: the subtle displacement of a rug near the entry, the precise angle of a discarded object beneath a chair, the stark, violated horror of the bedroom beyond. The forensic team, a silent legion in pristine white protective gear, worked with surgical precision. Each flash of a camera captured a fragment, slowly piecing together the shattered narrative of Amelia's final moments. They dusted, they swabbed, they documented, transforming a place of terror into a meticulous cartography of evidence. The apartment hallway, now bordered by bright yellow tape, claimed an equally critical focus. Faint yet distinct blood spatter patterns extended tragically beyond Amelia's threshold, indicating a violent struggle that hadn't been confined to the apartment's interior. The hallway detective Corbin observed, his voice low, almost lost beneath the quiet hum of equipment. That's where the last seconds truly played out. His mind, a complex engine of deduction, began to construct a chronology of desperation and violence. The initial assessment yielded an unsettling conclusion: no forced entry. The door itself bore no marks of a struggle from the outside. This chilling detail suggested a grim intimacy to the crime. Amelia had either known her attacker or, under duress, had allowed them past her sanctuary's door. The implications were immediate, starkly narrowing the initial parameters of their investigation. With every passing minute, an unseen pressure mounted. Vital evidence began its inevitable degradation. The fragile memories of potential witnesses would blur, and the perpetrator's path would steadily grow colder, obscured by time's relentless advance. This initial window, often referred to as the golden hours, became a severe test of the investigative team's resolve, where every decision and every lead pursued bore the profound weight of a life. For Detective Corbin and his team, the silence of the apartment was not merely punctuated by a ticking clock. It was a desperate clamor, demanding an unrelenting pursuit of truth. His pragmatic, determined approach was not a choice, but an imperative, anchoring the burgeoning investigation in the stark procedural realities of homicide, acutely aware of the immense effort demanded in these critical early stages of the case. The initial canvass of the Obsidian Towers proved a frustrating exercise in human evasion. Detective Corbin and his partner, Detective Lena Sharma, systematically worked their way through the floors, their questions echoing in the silent corridors. Most residents peering cautiously through peepholes or cracking their doors, only a sliver offered no details, insisting they'd perceived nothing amiss. Their faces, a mixture of genuine ignorance, thinly veiled fear, and a subtle, almost defiant denial, formed a collective wall against the intrusion. The implicit promise of urban anonymity, it seemed, was more potent than the imperative to share. Mrs. Albright, the trembling voice behind the 911 call, offered what little she could, her memory clouded by the trauma of what she glimpsed. Just a flash, she stammered, wringing her hands, a figure tall, I think. Moving so fast in that dim light. It was gone before I could make sense of it. Her eyes darted around her own apartment, as if the shadow she'd seen might still linger. The detectives understood the reluctance, the self-preservation instinct. Fear often silenced witnesses more effectively than any threat. Yet this quiet refusal to speak felt heavier, more layered than simple apprehension. As the day wore on, one name kept surfacing in hushed, casual mentions among the residents: Marcus Finch. He was a reclusive artist who lived 2 floors above Amelia, known for his erratic hours, often working through the night. "He's always out on his balcony, smoking," one neighbor commented, lowering her voice. "Sees everything that goes on up here." Another mentioned seeing his studio light on at all hours, an island of activity in the sleeping building. He represented a potential golden ticket in a sea of closed doors. But Marcus Finch's door remained stubbornly unanswered. His phone rang endlessly, each unanswered ring amplifying a quiet, growing suspicion within Corbin. In the immediate aftermath of such violence, the shared confines of an apartment building can transform into a labyrinth of unspoken truths. Each resident, a potential clue in a sprawling mystery, finds themselves bound by their own anxieties, daily rhythms, and a deep human aversion to confronting terror. Detective Corbin sensed a deliberate avoidance, a barrier erected not merely by the natural fear of reprisal, but perhaps by something more complex, a deeper secret held close. The focus of the nascent investigation began to shift, honing in on the elusive figure of Marcus Finch, the pivotal witness who remained frustratingly out of reach, his potential testimony holding the power to either illuminate the darkness or plunge it deeper into shadow. The challenge for the investigators now was to penetrate that veil of guarded quiet to unearth whatever Marcus Finch might know or fear to reveal. With the immediate hallway, leads stalled the investigation, pivoted turning inwards to meticulously dissect Amelia Thorne's life for any potential enemies or hidden conflicts. Detectives Corbin and Sharma, a seasoned pair, delved into the digital footprint Amelia had left behind. Her social media posts, email exchanges, and recent call logs became a complex, intimate diary. Every pixel, every stored message offered a glimpse into the final chapters of her world, searching for a discordant note amidst the harmony. A pattern began to emerge, an undercurrent of tension that had recently disrupted Amelia's otherwise calm existence. Amelia, they discovered, had recently ended a tumultuous relationship with Owen Grady, a charismatic marketing executive whose charm, upon closer inspection, seemed to mask a deeply possessive nature. Amelia's closest friend, Sarah Jenkins, confirmed their growing suspicions, her voice laced with concern, a stark contrast to her earlier grief-stricken recount. "He didn't take it well," Sarah revealed, pressing her lips into a thin line. "Owen was always intense. After the breakup, Amelia told me he'd been calling, non-stop emailing. He just wouldn't let go." Her words painted a picture of a persistent, almost suffocating attention that escalated beyond mere heartbreak. Grady instantly became a person of interest, the first concrete thread in a tangling web. Meanwhile, financial records were scrutinized, revealing no crippling debts, no suspicious transfers, no obvious motive rooted in monetary gain. Interviews with Amelia's colleagues painted a picture of a dedicated professional, well-liked and respected, without any overt workplace rivalries that could hint at such violence. Yet the absence of a clear external motive, coupled with the unnerving lack of forced entry, continued to plague the detectives. It suggested a deeper, more personal connection to the crime, a violation from within her trusted circle. The intricate web of Amelia's life, her friendships, her romances, her professional aspirations, presented itself not as an invasion, but as the only map forward. Detectives had to trace every connection, no matter how small, believing the truth lay concealed within the very patterns of her existence. Owen Grady, contacted by detectives, arrived at the precinct, appearing distraught, feigning a practiced shock and grief at Amelia's death. He offered an alibi that was almost surgically precise, detailing his movements and interactions down to the minute. It was perhaps a little too perfect. As he spoke, his hands, though casually placed, tapped a silent, rhythmic beat against his knee. A flicker of something raw, something barely suppressed agitation perhaps, or a deeper, colder calculation, occasionally crossed his eyes, betraying the calm facade he so carefully constructed. His composed exterior, coupled with the precision of his story, began to evoke a growing unease in the seasoned detectives, hinting that beneath the surface a more deceptive persona lay in wait. The hunt for Amelia's killer had now narrowed, focusing on a man whose every word and gesture promised cooperation, but whose subtle shifts betrayed a profound, unsettling secret. Just as the unforgiving first 48 hours deadline loomed, an unexpected call sliced through the precinct's relentless hum. Marcus Finch, the elusive artist from the Obsidian Towers, had finally surfaced, agreeing to an interview. He arrived at the station hours later, a gaunt figure whose reclusive nature was etched into his hunched posture and the way his gaze flickered nervously, unwilling to meet their eyes. He seemed to shrink into the interrogation room chair, a man utterly uncomfortable beneath the spotlight. Detectives Corbin and Sharma began gently, but Marcus's demeanor remained cagey. He spoke haltingly, describing a muffled argument emanating from Amelia's apartment, a brief escalating tension followed by a sickening thud. Then he recounted seeing a man leaving Amelia's door ajar, but his description was frustratingly vague. Tall, he muttered, running a hand through his disheveled hair. Dark clothes. Just a shadow really in the hallway light. Gone so fast. Each word was a struggle, each detail extracted with visible effort. For the detectives, a witness finally. A voice emerging from the silence. Yet a witness whose memory shrouded in fear, and the imperfect canvas of recollection seemed to generate more questions than answers. The clock, ever present, seemed to mock their efforts, its steady tick underscoring a drumbeat of dwindling time. Marcus admitted he hadn't called the police, immediately consumed by a palpable fear. A fear, the detectives noted, that seemed to extend beyond mere civic apprehension, hinting at something deeply unsettling and personal. I didn't want to get involved, he whispered, his gaze fixed on the table's surface. I just wanted it to be over. He then revealed a crucial detail. He had been on his balcony sketching during the early hours of the crime, his artistic vigil placing him squarely in the realm of observation. He had witnessed more than he initially let on, the sounds and shadows playing out below his own vantage point. His reluctance to come forward earlier, his fragmented recollection, and the unsettling fear that still clung to him like a shroud cast a long shadow of doubt on his full honesty. Corbin and Sharma exchanged a look. They had a witness, but the truth he held felt like a flickering candle in a vast darkness. They now had to wonder with mounting urgency what else Marcus Finch might have seen, and more importantly, what he feared to reveal. The key to Amelia's last moments lay with a man terrified to share them, and the precious first 48 hours were rapidly slipping away. Marcus Finch's imprecise description, though initially frustrating, sparked a crucial flicker of recognition for Detective Sharma. The generic, tall, dark clothes profile, once overshadowed by Finch's skittishness, began to align chillingly with Owen Grady. This alignment solidified when cross-referenced with Marcus's palpable fear and Amelia's recently disrupted life. It wasn't just a shadow anymore. A faint, disturbing outline was starting to emerge. Armed with this nascent link, the investigative team meticulously re-examined Owen Grady's alibi. His perfectly constructed timeline, once a rigid shield, now revealed subtle hairline fractures under intense scrutiny. During a second, more pointed interview, Grady began to contradict his previous statements, particularly regarding his precise whereabouts during the estimated time of Amelia's death. He maintained he'd gone for a late-night drive to clear his head after an argument with Amelia, but his routes were vague, his destinations shifting. He then introduced a new detail, a woman he claimed to have met at a bar, a casual encounter he hoped would account for his missing hours. But her existence remained unverified, a phantom alibi. At the same time, the forensic lab delivered a breakthrough, bringing another crucial piece into sharp focus. Embedded in Amelia's hand, almost imperceptible, was a unique synthetic fiber, inconsistent with anything found within her apartment. It was a minuscule thread, yet it carried the potential to unravel a larger truth. This fiber suggested contact with a specific external material, a silent witness from the struggle's final moments. The real shift came with the diligent review of the apartment building's often ignored security camera footage. Days of grainy, monotonous recordings finally yielded a fleeting yet undeniable image. Late that night, a figure entered the obsidian towers. Its build and general silhouette matched Marcus's description and, strikingly, Owen Grady's known physical traits. Crucially, the figure was holding a distinctive dark satchel, one that Grady was known to carry for his design work. It was a detail both specific and damning, a visual echo of Marcus Finch's dark clothes. Like pieces of a complex, violent mosaic, the disparate facts began to interlock, revealing a chilling, undeniable pattern. The fleeting shadows, the evasive words, the unique fiber, and the silent, grainy footage converged with an undeniable force. The detectives had what they needed. Time for observation had ended. The time for action had arrived. Owen Grady was brought in for questioning. His initial demeanor, a carefully constructed mask of weary indignation and feigned cooperation. He sat across the table, arms crossed, attempting to project an aura of nonchalance. "I've already told you everything," he asserted, his voice flat, a hint of impatience in his tone. "I'm shocked and heartbroken about Amelia. I just want this to be over." Detective Corbin, ever the seasoned detective, began with a non-threatening, almost conversational approach, allowing Owen to believe he was still in control of the narrative. "We're just trying to understand," Owen Corbin stated. "Amelia was important to you, right? You two had a history." Grady nodded slowly, his jaw tightening, almost imperceptibly. He offered brief, almost rehearsed answers, his eyes scanning the sterile walls of the interrogation room, avoiding direct contact with Corbin or Sharma. As the interview progressed, Detective Sharma subtly introduced the inconsistencies they'd uncovered. "You mentioned a late-night drive, Owen." She began, her tone neutral to clear your head. "Can you tell us more about the route you took, or perhaps any specific landmarks you passed?" Grady shifted in his seat, his earlier composure beginning to fray at the edges. His gaze darted, no longer scanning the room, but searching for an escape from their relentless, polite questioning. "I was upset." "Okay," he retorted, a defensive edge creeping into his voice. "My memory's not perfect. It was late. I just drove." The vague details of his drive now sounded less like an oversight and more like a deliberate omission. Sharma pressed gently. "And the woman you mentioned at the bar, the one who might verify your time there?" Grady hesitated, running a hand through his hair. I don't remember her name. It was just a casual thing. We chatted for a bit, then I left." The unverified encounter, once a convenient alibi, now hung in the air like an unanswered question, deepening the nascent cracks in his story. The air in the room thickened, charged with unspoken tension. Within the sterile confines of the interrogation room, a silent psychological battle commenced for the reluctant truth. Here, seasoned detectives, through methodical probing, sought to dismantle carefully constructed narratives, relying not on brute force, but on the undeniable weight of collected facts. Corbin leaned forward slightly, his eyes never leaving Grady's. "We've been very thorough, Owen," he stated, his voice still measured in reviewing all available information. "Everything, including what the building's cameras might have captured that night." He didn't show the footage or even describe it directly. He merely hinted, planting a seed of doubt and dread. Owen Grady's reaction was immediate and telling. A subtle tremor ran through his hand as he unconsciously tightened his grip on his crossed arms. His shoulders hunched, and his eyes for the first time held a flicker of genuine panic. Carefully constructed facade designed to project weary indignation buckled under the implied weight of unseen evidence. The shift in his body language, a silent confession, spoke volumes, hinting at a truth far darker than any lie he had yet uttered. The psychological cat-and-mouse game escalated the sterile walls of the interrogation room, now vibrating with unspoken tension. Detective Corbin, sensing the fragile cracks in Grady's composure, moved in for the decisive strike. "Owen," he began, his voice still even but now carrying an undeniable weight, "forensics found something very small, almost invisible at the scene. A unique synthetic fiber." It was clutched in Amelia's hand. He paused, letting the implication hang in the air, watching as a raw flicker of panic crossed Grady's face, quickly suppressed, but not missed. "That fiber," Owen Corbin continued, leaning slightly forward, his gaze unwavering, "it doesn't belong to Amelia or her apartment. It belongs to a very specific kind of material. The kind perhaps found on a dark satchel, like the one seen on security footage entering the Obsidian Towers late that night." "The satchel you were carrying?" Grady's feigned innocence imploded. Carefully constructed mask of weary indignation crumbled, replaced by a desperate, frantic energy. He bolted upright, his earlier nonchalance evaporated. Okay, I was there," he blurted out, his voice a sudden jarring spike in the room. His hands gesticulated wildly, a stark contrast to his earlier composure. "But it wasn't like that," we argued. "She came at me. She was furious about me calling her, about trying to talk things through. I was just defending myself." He frantically tried to reframe the encounter, painting himself as the victim, deflecting blame onto Amelia and her supposed fury in a desperate effort to escape the mounting evidence. Detective Sharma, with calm precision, began to dissect his improvised story. "She came at you, Owen, with what in her own hallway, with no sign of a weapon on her, but that unique fiber in her grip. Every new question from Sharma exposed a fresh gaping hole in his hurried fabrication. His narrative, a hastily constructed edifice of lies, began to unravel with alarming speed. His initial calm morphed into open agitation, then defensive anger, his voice rising, punctuated by frustrated gestures that grew increasingly desperate. "It was an accident. I didn't mean for it to happen," he cried, his carefully maintained facade dissolving completely, revealing the raw, violent core beneath. Under the relentless scrutiny of trained eyes, the meticulously built edifice of his innocence could no longer hold. The truth, long buried beneath layers of carefully crafted deceit, now clawed its way to the surface, demanding a voice. Owen Grady, the deceptive suspect, was utterly exposed. His inability to maintain a consistent story against the weight of irrefutable evidence laid bare his manipulative nature, a direct testament to the detective's unwavering skill in dissecting his every lie. The climax of the interrogation had arrived. The walls had finally closed in. Facing irrefutable evidence, the unique fiber, the damning security footage, The detailed, albeit reluctant testimony of Marcus Finch and his own crumbling edifice of alibis, Owen Grady, finally broke. His capitulation was not born of remorse, but of a desperate, guttural recognition of his capture's inevitability. His composure dissolved, entirely replaced by a raw, primal surge of self-preservation. "She wouldn't listen," he choked out, his voice hoarse, devoid of the earlier feigned grief. "She just kept yelling, saying it was over, pushing me away." He described a heated argument that night, a moment of uncontrolled rage fueled by Amelia's steadfast decision to end their relationship, a fury he could no longer contain. The verbal confrontation, he admitted, tragically spilled into violence in the hallway, a final desperate struggle for dominance that ended in Amelia's death. His words, captured on tape, painted a grim, chilling picture of a vibrant life, extinguished in a fit of possessive fury, a narrative of fatal arrogance that offered no apology. The police had their killer. The critical window of the first 48 hours, that intense crucible of investigative pressure, had been navigated, though just barely. The relentless drive for answers, pushing against the fading light, had delivered its grim success. Later that evening, the news was delivered to Amelia's family, a moment fraught with profound, complex emotions. Laura Thorne and Sarah Jenkins sat across from Detective Corbin, their faces etched with exhaustion and unspeakable grief. Laura's initial gasp of relief, a raw sound of release, was quickly overshadowed by a fresh, even heavier wave of sorrow. The stark reality of their loss crashed down anew, no less painful now that its cause was known. "It brings some closure," Laura said, her voice trembling, her hands clasping her sister's for strength. "But it doesn't bring her back." The words hung in the air, a stark, undeniable truth that resonated with the weight of countless similar losses. For the detectives, the arduous investigation had reached its conclusion. But for Amelia's family, a new agonizing chapter of grief began, tempered now by the hard-won knowledge that accountability, though incomplete, was finally within reach. The arrest was made, and Owen Grady was formally charged with Amelia Thorne's murder, the legal process now taking hold of a tragedy that had shattered so many lives. The trial of Owen Grady, the man accused of Amelia Thorne's murder, swiftly seized local headlines, drawing a somber, intense public gaze. The courtroom, a crucible where legal procedure met raw emotion, became the stage for meticulously reassembling the shattered fragments of Amelia's final moments for the jury. Prosecutor Eleanor Vance, a formidable figure, known for her exacting standards, methodically constructed the prosecution's case, laying out a compelling array of evidence. Each piece was unveiled with calculated impact, the forensic analysis of the unique synthetic fiber displayed graphically, its origin traced definitively to Owen Grady's distinctive dark satchel. Next, the powerful security footage from the Obsidian Towers, a grainy, silent chronicler played on large screens. It showed a figure matching Grady's build, carrying that very satchel, entering and later exiting the building during the critical window. The jury watched in hushed absorption as the visual evidence solidified the evolving narrative. Marcus Finch, the reclusive artist, took the stand, his discomfort palpable. His gaze still skittish, yet his testimony, however reluctant, proved damning. He recounted the muffled argument, the chilling thud, and the fleeting glimpse of the figure in the hallway. Under direct examination, he confirmed the man's build, the dark clothes, and the distinct satchel, aligning his fearful recollection with the concrete evidence. His honesty, hard-won, provided the crucial human perspective through which the technical evidence found its full weight. Detective Miles Corbin followed his composed presence on the stand, embodying the relentless drive for justice. His testimony was lucid, concise, and unwavering, detailing the entire investigative timeline, from the initial 911 call to the convergence of evidence that led to Grady's arrest. He spoke of the blood spatter patterns, the absence of forced entry, and the meticulous process of dismantling Grady's fabrications. His pragmatic, evidence-focused account anchored the procedural integrity of the case. Owen Grady, seated at the defense table, maintained a defiant, almost disdainful facade. He attempted to argue self-defense, claiming Amelia had been irrationally furious, had attacked him first in a jealous rage. His voice, once smooth and charming, now carried a brittle edge of desperation. Under the merciless cross-examination of Prosecutor Vance, however, his narrative crumbled. Each contradiction in his alibis, each new detail he'd improvised during the interrogation, was exposed, leaving his claims of victimhood in tatters. The deceptive suspect persona, now ensnared within the unforgiving structure of the legal system, struggled to maintain even a shred of credibility, his carefully constructed lies dissolving under the relentless glare of truth. Trial's emotional zenith arrived with the victim impact statements. Laura Thorne, Amelia's sister, rose to address the court, her initial grief having hardened into a steely resolve. Embodying the grieving family member persona, now transformed into a fierce advocate, her voice, though tinged with an abiding sorrow, was clear and resonant. She spoke not just of her own pain, but of the gaping hole in their lives. The dreams Amelia would never realize, the future stolen by a moment of violent possessiveness. Her words, direct and accusatory, were aimed squarely at Owen Grady, who sat impassively, refusing to meet her gaze. "You didn't just take Amelia's life. You tore a piece of our very souls," Laura declared, her voice rising with a potent, righteous anger. "May you never know another moment of freedom, another moment of peace." The jury, having borne witness to the full, devastating narrative, delivered its verdict, swiftly guilty. The word echoed through the silent courtroom, a definitive end to months of agonizing uncertainty. Owen Grady was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole, a judgment that brought a grim measure of finality to Amelia Thorne's story. Justice, a concept often elusive, found its concrete, tangible form within the stark walls of the courtroom. The scales, once tipped precariously by the unknown, now settled, confirming the profound truth of a life taken and a perpetrator held to account. For Amelia Thorne's family, the legal journey had concluded, granting them not a return to normalcy, but a crucial step toward healing, armed with the knowledge that Amelia's light, though extinguished, would forever demand its due. Years turned into a decade, then more, yet Amelia Thorne's memory persisted, not as a fading photograph, but as a profound impression upon the lives she had touched. The Obsidian Towers, once a locus of terrifying uncertainty, gradually resumed a facade of normalcy. New faces, oblivious to the building's dark history, moved through its polished hallways, drawn by the allure of urban convenience. Yet for those who remembered, a quiet gravitas endured, an unspoken specter woven to the very fabric of the architecture. The subtle shift in the light near apartment 3B, the unconscious catch of breath when passing that particular door. These were the enduring whispers of a past that refused to be silenced. Marcus Finch, the reclusive artist, whose reluctant testimony proved so pivotal, was profoundly and irrevocably altered by his experience. The terror he had felt, the pervasive guilt of his initial silence, became a crucible that refined his art. His canvases, once vibrant but emotionally detached abstracts, now pulsed with a deeper understanding of human vulnerability, resilience, and the fragile beauty of life's fleeting moments. He found a new purpose sketching, not just the city's indifferent skyline, but the quiet, unremarked lives within it, each stroke imbued with a raw, profound empathy. Occasionally, under the deepening cloak of twilight, a small bouquet of wildflowers would appear by the door of Amelia's old apartment, a silent vigil, a personal penance, and a quiet homage to the woman whose tragedy had compelled him to look beyond his own insulated world. Laura Thorne and Sarah Jenkins, bound by the shared profound grief of Amelia's absence, forged a different, equally powerful path forward. Their initial sorrow, once an all-consuming force, gradually coalesced into an unshakable determination. They became vocal advocates for victims' rights, channeling their searing pain into a potent force for positive change. They attended legislative meetings, spoke at conferences, and offered solace to other families navigating the desolate landscape of violent loss. They never spoke of Amelia as a victim defined by her end, but as a vibrant spirit whose fiercely protected memory fueled their tireless fight for a more just world. Amelia's story isn't just about what happened to her, Laura would often say. Her voice strong, despite the underlying sorrow. It's about how we choose to fight for the dignity of every life that is taken too soon. Apartment 3B, after standing empty for a respectful yet practical period, eventually welcomed new residents. A young couple, full of their own hopes and dreams, unpacked boxes, and painted walls, unknowingly settling into a space that once held a silent scream, a violent struggle, and the genesis of a relentless stalk. They were now, in their own quiet way, part of the ongoing narrative of life after tragedy, a testament to the world's ceaseless turning even in the aftermath of unimaginable darkness. The wounds of such a crime penetrate deeply, leaving an indelible trace not merely on families, but on the very soul of communities. While the verdict and sentence may definitively close a chapter, in the legal sense, the profound resonance of a life lost reverberates eternally, a constant, poignant echo of the delicate threads that bind us all. For those left behind, the journey is not one of forgetting, but of active remembrance, of finding strength amidst the wreckage, and of ensuring that the echoes of tragedy serve as an enduring call for empathy and justice. Justice may prevail, but the quiet echoes of a shattered life linger forever. If you want to delve deeper into more cases where truth emerges from the shadows, subscribe to Shadow Files for more. Don't forget to subscribe to Shadow Files and hit the notification bell.